the MLB playoffs that began. So the Padres defeated the New York Mets in 3 games in the wild card series. So the Mets season is done. They were demolished and annihilated at home yesterday in game 3, 6-0 at Citi Field. So the Padres are going to face the Dodgers in the NLDS. And Joe Musgrove was sensational. Again, just tore apart the Mets offense, held them scoreless through the first 7 innings, went 7 innings strong, just gave up 1 hit, 1 walk. It was actually the first time, the Mets are the first team ever to be held to just 1 hit in a winner take all game. Buck Showalter, the manager for the New York Mets, was trying to deploy all tactics possible. He had the umpires check Joe Musgrove's hat and his ears for potential substances. Obviously, that worked to no avail. That strategy was to no avail. So, where do the New York Mets go from here? Right, that's the question, because this is obviously extremely disappointing. And it's not just because of the fact that they lost, nor is it just about the team that they lost to. But what's disappointing about this is how they just crashed down the stretch of the regular season, how they just flailed into the wild card position that they're in. They shouldn't have been in a wild card position at all. They should have been a top 2 team. And the way that they allowed the Braves to chase them down at the end of the regular season, that's the most disconcerting part of what's happened to the New York Mets. And when you look at the talent that this team has, it's almost unfathomable and perplexing how much they would struggle, how the struggles would just hamper their ability, because this is a team in game 3 with all the offensive players and talent that they have. They went 1 for 28 collectively in game 3 at home. All 3 games were played at home. I actually think that's the one new rule change to the MLB playoffs that I actually really like. The wild card games now, it's not just one individual win or go home game. You have a whole series. It's played entirely at the higher seeded team's field. And the Mets lose 6-0 at home. They can only get 1 for 28, 1 hit at home. Seriously? That's a problem. That's a major problem. And this is a Mets team that has the highest payroll in the MLB. Yes, they've got a higher payroll than the Dodgers and the Yankees. Now, the Padres have the 5th highest payroll, so it's not like they lost to a team that was bereft of talent. No, the Padres have a lot of talent, but still, the 2 areas where they've invested the most, and specifically the key guys, they didn't perform. Max Scherzer, he just signed a massive 3-year, $130 million contract that's paying him $43 million a year, and he gives up 4 home runs and 7 total runs in game 1 in a 7-1 loss. And it's like he invoked once again the ghosts of his postseason past. For the Dodgers, he pitched well. The one season with the Nationals where they won the World Series, he pitched well. But prior to that, he kind of gained a reputation as someone who struggled in the postseason. So he didn't perform well. You signed last offseason Francisco Lindor, 10 years, $300+ million deal. A great investment at the time. And he still played well during the regular season, but the postseason, he struggled. He didn't really play particularly well. You had Sterling Marte that you signed. Eduardo Escobar that you signed. These are some guys, these are some names of guys. Mark Canha you signed in the offseason. And none of these guys really produced in the postseason. That's a lot of money you're investing in offense that you expect to be there and doesn't really show up. And so everything just kind of crumbled and went to shambles. And especially in game three, was just reduced to rubble. And so to me, when I look at the New York Mets, here's what I know. They've got a powerful owner. Steve Cohen is not a very patient man. He's worth about $17 billion. But Steve Owner's a smart man. And he understands that in sports, you have to be able to exhibit patience. But more importantly, you have to be able to remain and continue to be committed to excellence and for striving for excellence and for striving to be a championship team. He understands that unlike business in sports, it requires, it demands additional patience because there's so many things that are out of your control. But the one thing that you can control, and even though the results of this season were not what the Mets would have liked, if you're Steve Cohen, if you're Bobby Epler, the former Angels manager who Steve Cohen brought in to be the manager, the general manager of the New York Mets, you have to remain financially committed and stay aggressive with your approach. I don't think it's entirely futile. I think at some point that's the way you become more relevant in New York, in Major League Baseball. You have to stay, and I've commended him for his willingness to spend, for his willingness to put his money where his mouth is. You have to stay aggressive. But beyond all that, and again, offensively, the offensive woes that they sustained, I'm not entirely sure how you address that in the offseason. Perhaps you target more traditional sluggers. I don't really know how you fix the offense because you traded for a lot of typically known offensive guys. But I do know this, the number one priority for the New York Mets, above anything else, the number one priority and objective is to re-sign Jacob deGrom. He should be your number one priority at all costs. He's arguably the best pitcher in baseball. He still has several good years left. He's 33, maybe 34. He still has a decent amount of runway left. You cannot allow Jacob deGrom to get out of your midst because he is sensational. If they lose Jacob deGrom, then you're almost starting from scratch again. You have to retain Jacob deGrom by all means. Again, what you do with the offense and how to ignite it, not entirely sure. You have to keep Jacob deGrom if possible. Otherwise, you're seriously in trouble.